there's no better endorsement for Damon than having your 17-year-old decide to do his chapel talk at a senior year at school on the impact the coffee bean had on him. The book hit me right between the eyes in March. I shared it with our team. We had many, many discussions on it. And I just, can't say enough about Damon's story. I hope you had a chance to look at it. Truly powerful. About 2 years ago, I caught a YouTube clip of Damon throwing a 55-yard pass. He'll say it's like 60, but about a 55-yard pass at Michigan State's spring game. And he hit the guy on the stride at the goal line. And I was like, who the hell is this guy? I did a little digging, and he'll get into it. His connection with Dabo Sweeney at Clemson, probably the coolest background out there if you're a football fan, behind Damon. But the bottom line is he's got some really interesting learnings from an incredibly challenging and interesting past. And I can speak for him when I say there's no person who's more grateful for a chance at sort of another go round, as they say, and appreciate your sporting the swag too, Damon. We'll have pictures with next to Clemson, Michigan State, and Alabama, I'm sure, with your Edison swag on. But with no further ado, Damon, the floor is yours. I know you can go for a lot longer than the 45 minutes or so we've got. Folks, if you got questions, please throw them up in the chat. But I look forward to you all, meeting Damon. And if you haven't read The Coffee Bean yet, I bet you will after this session. So, Damon, take it away. The floor is yours. I'm going to step out of the screen so you can have it to yourself.
Chris, man, thank you so much. And look, before we even get started, I just got to give props to Lacey, man. Lacey, you are amazing. She is making this thing go behind us. Y'all, she's doing stuff behind the scenes. Y'all had no idea what was going on while the speakers are happening right now. We've been backstage for about 30 minutes working through technical stuff. So, Lacey, you're awesome. Thank you for what you do. Greg, I want to thank you too. Thank you for the opportunity today. What's interesting about Chris and his son, I saw a tweet come through about Chris's son's football team, football being canceled where he lived. And so we got to talking, and eventually I'm going to be able to go out there and go speak to his team and to his town, which is what I enjoy doing. Y'all listen, in my life, I've been so blessed with the opportunities I have in my life. I'm the CEO of my company, of Damon West LLC. So talking to y'all today is something that's very important to me, very special to me, because I know what you're going through. I can empathize with your plight. It's not every Zoom, conference I get onto, or every in-person conference that I can sit there and say, well, I can relate to everybody in this crowd, but I can relate to y'all because coronavirus was hard, y'all. And so many of us have had to reinvent ourselves inside the coronavirus. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I had to reinvent myself too, because it took getting outside of my comfort zone to make this happen. And that's where growth takes place, outside of your comfort zone. Let me tell you a story about getting outside your comfort zone before I even get started with my presentation today. And it's about going out and making the ask. It's about putting in the extra work, because that's what life is all about, putting in the work. Because if we're willing to put in the work, then we're going to see the results of that work. So take you back to January of 2017. I had been out of prison about 14 months, and I'm working at a law firm in Beaumont, Texas, and I really want to get out and speak to college football programs, but I don't have any access to college football coaches. And, I played Division I college football back in the 90s. I played quarterback at North Texas, but I don't have any access to these coaches of today. So a buddy of mine calls me up. I live about 90 miles from Houston. He's a Houston sports guy. And he says, hey, I've got an extra press pass to the Bear Bryant Coach of the Year Award tonight in Houston. The Bear Bryant Coach of the Year is they're going to name the top college football coach in America. He said, do you want to come? I'll sneak you in. I was like, heck yeah, I want to come, because I'm seeing that this could be the opportunity. This could be the break. So I get in my car. I drive the 90 miles to Houston after work. I get to the Toyota Center. He sneaks me in the door, and I hit the ground running, y'all. And I'm talking about all the best coaches in the country there. USC, Penn State, Wisconsin, PJ Fleck. They're all there. And I'm getting to meet all these coaches and press the flesh with them and give them my elevator pitch. My elevator pitch is so terrible at the time, though, y'all. I mean, I'm just vomiting all over these people for 30 seconds to a minute. And at the end of my elevator pitch with all of these coaches, every one of these coaches is slamming the door in my face. I mean, they are telling me no left and right. They're not being rude about it, but they're like, don't call us, we'll call you. I'm 7 of the 8 coaches down. I'm in the corner of the Toyota Center, and I'm licking my wounds. I'm feeling sorry for myself, and I'm telling myself, Damon, go home. Go home. That last coach, he's going to tell you no because all the other coaches told you no that night. And he's the most in-demand coach there is because his team just won the national championship 2 days ago. And nobody can get to this guy. Everybody wants a piece of this guy's time. He's going to tell you no. But then that voice kicked in. That voice that kicked in that reminded me that, hey, Damon, you want to be a motivational speaker. What kind of motivational speaker just quits, right? Who wants to listen to that guy? And you survived prison, man. You survived way worse than this. You know what? That guy's going to tell you no to your face. So, y'all, I stalked Dabo Swinney around that room that night. And when I found my opening, I pounced on Dabo. And I've got Dabo up against the wall in the Toyota Center. And I'm giving that elevator pitch, that terrible elevator pitch. And to this day, Dabo will tell you it was like getting a drink of water from a fire hydrant. I mean, it was just coming at it full force. And at the end of this terrible pitch, he says, hey, you got a card on you? So I give him my card, and he grabs the card. He said, thanks, we'll be in touch. And he takes off. And, man, I'm telling you, it felt like a no. But you know what? It felt good, though. It felt good because I left it all on the field. I made 8 asks. I got 8 no's, and I did everything I could. So I went home that night, slept like a baby. I forgot all about that night, to be honest with you. 4 months later, I'm sitting at my desk at work, and I get an email from Mike Dewey, the director of football operations at Clemson University. And the email says, hey, Damon, it's Mike Dewey at Clemson. Coach Swinney said he met you at an award show in Houston and would love to have you come talk to the team. Do you have August 1st open? What? Do I have August 1st open? Man, I got every first open, dude. So I get to Clemson on August 1st, 2017. I get to speak to the defending national champions, the Clemson Tiger football team. And when that presentation's over, a lot of which you're about to hear today, when that presentation was over, Dabo had me up against the wall now. And Dabo was telling me, he's like, Damon, that's the most amazing story I've ever heard. He said, I've never seen my team respond like that to a speaker before. He said, man, have you been to Alabama yet? And I look at Dabo, I'm like, no, Dabo, man, I've been to Clemson, dude. How am I going to go to Alabama? He said, we'll see about that. He said, I just texted Nick Saban from the back of the room. Y'all, when I landed in Houston the next morning from that trip to Clemson, when I landed in Houston, I had a voicemail and a text message from the director of football operations at Alabama. And it said, hey, Damon, we'll see you in Tuscaloosa in 3 weeks. You are on. Just like that, Dabo started kicking the doors open to college football. Now I'm in front of every college football team in America. And that's where Chris saw me a few years ago when I was at Michigan State. You know, Michigan State, y'all. I've been all over the country. About a year after that presentation to Clemson, I was at my desk at work again because I'm still working at a law firm at that point because my life as a speaker, my entrepreneur spirit hasn't exactly taken off yet. I've still got to work at my trade and my craft, and I'm working another job, and I'm trying to get my business growing. August of 2018, I get a phone call. And on the other end of that phone that day was a guy named John Gordon. John Gordon, y'all. Man, I know who John Gordon is. John Gordon, he's this huge motivational speaker and author. I've read his books. He's the energy bus guy. I follow him on social media. And his voice sounds like the same guy from Twitter when I watch all his videos. But, man, how does John Gordon know who I am? So I asked him, I'm like, hey, John, if you're really John Gordon, how do you know who I am? He said, Dabo Swinney. He said, I was just in Dabo's office. I just got finished talking to the team. And Dabo told me all about you. All he could do was talk about you and that coffee bean story, Damon. He said, and this was in 2018, he said, Damon, the world needs the coffee bean story right now. The world needs a coffee bean message. He said, write a book with me. We'll call it The Coffee Bean. He said, Damon, it'll be a bestseller. He said, I need you to do this with me. And I tried to talk John out of it. I'm like, you're John Gordon. You've sold 4 million books, man. Go write the book without me. Have a nice life. He said, Damon, the only way it works is if we do it together. The world needs a message. Are you in? So I jumped in with John. And he let me latch my wagon on to his train. And I mean, he put my business, my life as a speaker, my message into another atmosphere, y'all. And I go back and tell this story all the time because you never know where your Dabo Swinney is going to be. You never know where that person that's going to change your life, that referral that's going to change your life is going to be. But you won't ever find out if you don't ever ask the question and if you don't put in the work. If I would have left the Toyota Center that night because I was sure that last coach was going to tell me no, if I would have left that night before meeting Dabo Swinney, then you would have never heard about Damon West. And you would have never heard the story of the coffee bean you're about to hear right now. Y'all, I get it. The coronavirus was hard. You know, I told you a while ago, I had to reinvent myself during this thing. About week 2 of this thing, I was so frustrated and so mad because the world shut down, and I've got this product as a speaker and I'm an author, but now nobody wants to have any presentations. Nobody wants to have anybody in to sign books. And so I'm seeing everything I've built collapse in front of me. But I think about that coffee bean. I think about that message to the coffee bean, which I'm about to share with y'all in a little bit. And I decide, you know what? I'm not going to be negative about it. I'm going to be positive about it. I'm going to find what the opportunity is in this adversity, because inside of every adverse, dark, tragic situation, there are opportunities. And sometimes you have to dig deep to find them. I called a friend of mine that's got a huge Zoom platform, and she's out of work. She's a consultant too. And I said, hey, Lisa, let's team up. We'll use your platform and my coffee bean message, and we'll tell everybody in the world that you can have this message for free on this platform. Just sign up today, and we'll give you the coffee bean message for free. And we'll see what we can do to put some good back in the world, put some positivity back out there. And y'all, people signed up left and right. I probably did 100 Zoom calls in a 3.5 to 4 month span for free, y'all. Gave away my product. But you know what happened in the end? In the end, when the world opened back up in August, people came calling. They said, hey, we remember you from your presentations you did. You helped pick us up back then. Will you come out and speak to my company, my team, my group, my organization? Y'all, 2020 has been the best month, the best year I've ever had. And I know that sounds almost fragile to say, and it almost sounds like it's like, I'm not taking into consideration what 2020 has been for others, but for me personally, with the way I've worked hard and helped change and grow my business, 2020 became the best year I've ever had. I've been so busy with speaking opportunities since the country opened back up, because I found a way to reinvent myself and make my message applicable, make my product applicable to the world around me. Because we have to grow and adapt. We have to find the opportunities in adversity, yo. Let me tell you a story about the opportunity in adversity, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell y'all a story today. And I'm going to bring this in with all your core values of empathy, candor, trust, and transparency. Because these core values play a role in my life too. They didn't always, though. Let me take you back. I'm going to take you back to May 18th, 2009. I'm standing in front of a jury in Dallas County. And this jury of my peers, these 12 men and women, have just listened to 6 days of overwhelming evidence of my guilt, of the crime of engaging in organized criminal activity. And these folks are mad at me, y'all. They listened to a story over 6 days being told by the prosecution about a guy that had it all. Had it all, y'all. I grew up in a great family from a town called Port Arthur, Texas. And my family, I didn't come from a broken home. My parents to this day are still married. Been married 52 years, y'all. Grew up in a nice, wonderful home. Had every opportunity in life. I got into substance abuse at a young age. I was a gifted athlete. I was a star quarterback in my hometown. God blessed me with a cannon for a right arm. Got a scholarship to play football at the University of North Texas. I'm playing Division I college football. About 20 years old, I'm the starter. Then I get hurt. And drugs come back into my life. Cocaine, ecstasy pills, That's what it was at first when I was in college. And I was dealing with the loss of my football career. I graduated college. I moved off to Washington, D.C. I get a job working in the United States Congress. After I work in Congress for a little while, I go work for a guy running for president of the United States. Raise money for him all over the country, doing presidential fundraising. And when he dropped out of the race in 2004, I moved back to Dallas, Texas to train to be a stockbroker for one of the biggest Wall Street banks in the world, UBS, United Bank of Switzerland. And it was at that job as a stockbroker that I came up to a giant fork in the road in life. This fork in the road in life, these fork in the roads that I talk about all the time, they're days that life changes for you and everything looks different after that. And so it was 2004. I was asleep at my desk at work at UBS, and this other broker comes up. He sees me sleeping, and he says, Damon, wake up. He says, man, you can't sleep on this job. He said, the markets are open. He said, they'll fire you for that. You're messing with people's money. He said, come on down to the parking garage. I got someone's going to pick you up. So we went down to the parking garage that day. And when we got into his car, where I thought we were about to do some cocaine, he handed me a glass pipe with these little crystal rocks in it. And y'all, I've never seen a glass pipe before. And I kind of freaked out on the guy, like, man, what is that? He said, Damon, it's crystal meth. He said, relax. He said, you'll love this stuff. And y'all, truer words have never been spoken. I fell in love with that drug that day. I was instantly hooked to the drug of crystal meth when I took that first hit. And y'all, I gave everything away for that drug because that's what addicts do. I'm an addict, y'all. I'm in recovery today, but I'm an addict. We give things away. No one steals from an addict. We give it away. I gave up my job, my home, my car, my savings account, my family, my tethering to God. I went from working on Wall Street to living on the streets of Dallas, y'all. I'm homeless. I'm sleeping in abandoned buildings. I'm living in, sleeping in people's cars. I'm living in dope houses with other dope fiends, because that's what I am, as a dope fiend. And I started committing property crimes to fund my addiction, because I don't have any money now. I've burned through all my savings and everything else. And I started breaking into people's cars, people's storage units. And eventually, it escalated to home burglaries. And y'all, a home burglary, there's no way to sugarcoat this. The victims of my crime paid a huge price, because I didn't just steal my victim's property. I stole my victim's sense of security, y'all. And I don't even know if they ever get that back. And I always make it a point to talk about my victims, because they're the ones that paid the highest price for me to be here today telling you this story. But after 3 years of committing property crimes against the people of Dallas, Texas, on July 30th, 2008, a Dallas SWAT team put an end to the Uptown burglaries. They came through windows and doors and had guns in my face and took me down. And that was the end of the Uptown burglaries, July 30th, 2008, the day I was arrested. Or as I like to tell audiences everywhere I go, that wasn't just the day I was arrested. Man, that was the day I was rescued. God got me out of a situation I could not get myself out of. So there we are at that trial on day 6. That jury has listened to this entire case of how I became a criminal mastermind, how I had a group of about 12 men and women, and we indiscriminately broke into homes all over Dallas to feed our insatiable meth habits. And at the end of this 6 days of overwhelming evidence of my guilt, that jury went to deliberate for 10 minutes on my sentence. 10 minutes, y'all. I don't know how much Law and Order you watch, but if a jury's gone for 10 minutes, they smoked you. And when I came back into that courtroom, that judge who hadn't smiled the entire trial, he's grinning from ear to ear. And he said, Damon Joseph West, he said, you are hereby sentenced to 65 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. 60 Texas. After the trial was over, my mom and my dad, who had been at the trial for 6 days, they were given one last visit with me. They've got me behind this bulletproof glass now, and my mom and dad come in, and my dad is, man, he's just stoic. He's in stunned disbelief at his son, with all this promise in life, just being handed a life sentence in prison. So my mother does all the talking. My mom says, baby, debts in life demand to be paid. She said, you just got hit with one hell of a bill from the state of Texas. She said, but you did the things they said you did at that trial, Damon, so you have to go and pay that debt to society. She said, but you owe your father and I a debt too. She said, Damon, we gave you all the opportunity, love, and support to be anything you wanted to be in life, and this is how you repay us. What we saw in the court. She said, it's not going to work. It will never work. She said, so here's the debt you're going to pay to us. When you go to prison, you will not get one of these white hate groups, one of these Aryan Brotherhood type gangs, because you're scared because you're the minority in there. She said, it's not going to work. You were never raised to see race, and you're not going to start now. She said, you will not get any tattoos when you're in that prison. And y'all, I show people my arms and my sleeves everywhere I go. Y'all, I was locked up for almost 10 years. These guys want to tattoo every inch of your body in prison. And man, I told those guys all the time when they asked me about getting a tattoo, they're like, hey, Wes, let me put a tattoo on you, man. I'd be like, hey, dude, I can't do it. My mom said no, because my mom told May 18th, 2009, rock bottom. The day was rock bottom for me. My mother told me, she said, Damon, no gangs, no tattoos. She said, you come back as the man we raised, or don't you come back at all. It's tough love coming from my mom, She said, do you understand this debt you're going to pay, Damon? And through the tears, because I was crying like a baby, I told my mom, I said, yeah, Mom, I got it. But what did I know, y'all? What do I know about prison? I'm a white middle-class guy in America. What do I know about the penitentiary, right? So I get back to my pod in Dallas County Jail, and I'm asking all these guys that had been to prison before, how am I going to survive? What am I going to do? And every guy I talk to, every single one of them, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, they're all telling me the same thing. You got to get into a gang, Wes. You can't survive without a gang. You're going to the worst part of the Texas prison system, where everybody in the building you live on has life. They call it the life sentence building for a reason. Man, make your life easy, Wes. Get into a gang. But there was this one guy, this older black man named Mr. Jackson. And Mr. Jackson, he's what you call a career criminal, man. Mr. Jackson been out of prison all his life, 4 or 5 times, probably in his 60s. But he was the most positive guy I've ever met, y'all. Mr. Jackson had a smile on his face all the time. And one morning, he came up to me, had a cup of coffee in his hand, and a smile on his face. And he said, West, I've been watching how you're dealing with these knuckleheads and these dummies. Talking about you got to get into a game. He said, do not listen to these fools. He said, but let me tell you what prison's going to be like. He said, let me lace you up. He said, the first thing you need to understand about prison is prison's all about race. And he said, because it's all about race, when you get to prison, he said, you're going to have to fight the white gangs for your survival first. You know, he's telling me the Aryan Brotherhood, the Aryan Circle, the White Knights, the Woods. He said, you're fighting them all. He said, and if you survive all that and you don't give in to their ideology of hate out of fear, because ladies and gentlemen, we do a lot of things in life out of fear. You know, 2020 could be a sociological study to see what human beings will do out of fear. What will we give up out of fear? What comforts, what securities will we give up? What independence will we give up out of fear, you know? And my co-author and good friend, John Gordon, talks about fear all the time. And John says fear and faith have more in common than just the letter F they begin with. He said fear and faith both believe in a future that hasn't happened yet. He said fear is a negative future and faith is a positive future. So John's telling audience all the time, always, always, always choose faith over fear. And that's what Mr. Jackson's telling me that day when he's telling me about, you know, fighting the white gangs off and don't give it into them. And he said, and once you get done fighting the white gangs, get ready because the black gangs are coming next, and the Crips and the Bloods, the Gangster Disciples, the Mandingo Warriors. He said, you're fighting them all. But he said, if you survive all that, and you can survive all that, you will earn the right to walk alone. And he said, the strongest man in prison always walks alone. And he told me something that day that it's become a mantra in my life. And it's something I repeat to myself many times a day when Mr. Jackson told me. He said, you don't have to win all your fights, but you do have to fight all your fights. And that's a lesson in life, y'all. And everybody in this call, everybody, every CEO in America, big or small business, you know this. You can't win all your battles in life, man. You are going to lose sometimes. But you got to get up and keep going. You can never stay down on the ground. And that's what Jackson's telling me that day in prison, in Dallas County Jail. You can't stay down, West. You got to get up and keep fighting. Never turn down a fight. Always show up in life. And when he's telling me this, he's explaining the violence, the extreme violence I'm about to go into. Y'all, I'm like a deer in headlights. And that's when Mr. Jackson backs up a little bit. He says, Wes, he said, let me break it down for you another way. He said, I want you to imagine prison as a pot of boiling water. And he said, anything we put in that pot of boiling water is going to be changed by the heat and the pressure inside that pot. He said, I'm going to put three things in that pot of boiling water and watch how they change. A carrot, an egg, and a coffee bean. So he said, first things first, Wes, if I put a carrot in that pot of boiling water we call prison, he said, what happens to the carrot? And I said, well, Mr. Jackson, the carrot turns soft. He said, that's right, Wes. He said, the carrot went into the water hard, but the water, the prison, changed that carrot. Turned that hard carrot soft. He said the carrot got soft and mushy and weak. And he said the carrot got beat, he got robbed, he may have got raped, and he may have gotten killed. He said, you don't want to be the carrot in prison. He said, what about the egg, West? I said, well, you know, an egg in a pot of boiling water turns hard, Mr. Jackson, like a hard-boiled egg. He said, that's right, West. Like a hard-boiled egg. He said the egg is a shell that protects it physically, but inside that shell, that soft liquid core, his heart becomes hardened. He said, if your heart becomes hardened, you're incapable of giving or receiving love. He said, if you're incapable of giving or receiving love, you have become institutionalized, and you will not come back as someone your parents recognize, because your eggshell will have swastikas tattooed all over it. And that's when he asked me. He said, what about the coffee bean? And I had no clue, y'all. I didn't know what happened to a coffee bean in boiling water. And that's when Mr. Jackson told me. He said, if I put a coffee bean in the same pot of boiling water we call prison, he said, now you have to change the name of the water to coffee. Because he said the coffee bean, the smallest of these three things, had the power to change the entire atmosphere inside that pot, because the power was inside the coffee bean, just like the power is inside of you. He said everybody in life puts out energy, negative or positive. He said whatever kind of energy we put out, we attract back. It's called the law of attraction, y'all, and it works. He said, he said, if you want to walk around prison all the time with a mean mug on your face and a scowl, you want to look hard, he said, man, all you're going to do is attract the hardest people into your life. He said, well, you're going to the life sentence building. Well, that could be a dangerous, even deadly endeavor to attract those people to you. He said, but Wes, if you walk around that prison with a smile on your face and you let those guys know they're not getting to you, no matter what they do, they can't get to you. He said, you will change that prison from the inside out. And he said, the best part about it is the other coffee beans in prison, the other positive inmates, they'll find you because of your energy. And the last thing Mr. Jackson told me before I got on that prison bus in August of 2009 to be shipped off to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice to go start serving a life sentence in a life sentence building in Texas. He looked at me and he said, West, go out there and go be a coffee bean. Be a coffee bean. Man, if this old man was shooting me straight, if he was telling me the truth, that meant that the power was inside of me. And if the power was inside me, just like it's inside that coffee bean, that means that the power is not in the hands of the criminal justice system, the guards, the other inmates, that I would have to give them that power from within me for them to have it over me. And if the power is truly inside me, that means that no matter what environment I'm in, even a maximum security prison, that I won't only survive that environment, that I'll thrive in that environment. And the power is inside me. The power is inside you too, to change any environment you're in. And I got a chance to prove that when I got to prison. Y'all, prison was the hardest thing I've ever been through in my life. My book, The Change Agent. You know, The Change Agent, I go through the first 2 months of prison. It's the hardest thing I've ever been through, y'all. It's the most violent thing, the most terrorizing thing I've ever been through. But I got up every day and I fought. And I lost most of my fights, but I get up every day and I fight. And I learned that even the fights I lost, I won because I kept showing up and they couldn't break me. I had a cellmate named Carlos in prison. And Carlos told me one day, he said, if you want to change the way you act, if you want to become that coffee bean, you have to change the way you think. He said, because all action is born of thought. And thought without action, well, the whole day room down there in prison, he said, is full of people that have thoughts without action. He said, if you want to become that coffee bean, you have to quit looking at prison as a punishment and start looking at prison as an opportunity. There's that word again, y'all. I started this presentation out and I talked about finding the opportunities in adversity. No more adverse situation that I've ever been in my life than living in a maximum security dungeon. But I woke up every day. My feet would hit the cold concrete floor of the prison cell and I'd even say it out loud. I'd be like, hey, thank you, God, for this opportunity. And I'd get to work on myself. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. And months became years. But I figured out how to become that coffee bean inside that prison. I'm going to give it to you today. I'm going to give you the 5 ways that I became a coffee bean. The first rule about becoming a coffee bean is having positive body language. Your positive body language starts with your smile, y'all. And especially in the days you don't feel like it, smile. Smile every chance you get. Because what happens when you smile is you release endorphins. You release these chemicals in your brain, and they make you feel good. You have something positive to give, and you can't give what you don't have. And now that you're smiling, other people will see you smiling, and guess what happens when they read your body language? They smile back. And in a room full of smiling positive people, in a jail cell, in a prison pod full of smiling positive people, negative people, you have 2 choices of how they're going to handle that. Most negative people in a room full of smiling positive people, they get with the program and become positive too, because human beings have this inherent need to want to belong and be loved. At the core of being human, that's what we want. We want to be part of the herd, part of the pack. But the truly negative people, the ones I call the hardcore hard-boiled eggs, the ones you can't penetrate no matter what you do to find out what ails these people. In a room full of smiling positive people, these people get out of the room. They quit. They quit their jobs. They quit their team. They quit their groups. They quit being a part of that positive room because they don't like that positive energy, and that's okay. We can't take everybody along for the ride. We will never allow one person's negative energy to change the positive energy in our teams, our groups, our rooms. It's not going to happen, y'all. Mr. Jackson told me, he said, you will either infect the rooms with your negative energy that you go into, or you're going to affect them with your positive energy. Infect versus affect, y'all. Positive energy, y'all. The first rule about being a coffee bean is your smile. Smile. Positive body language. Second rule about being a coffee bean is getting up every day and working out in 3 areas: spiritually, mentally, and physically. Y'all, this means you got to get in shape. You got to be a complete human being, to be a coffee bean. You can't just be one-dimensional. I was in prison with guys that could play in the NBA and the NFL. These guys were physical specimens. These guys were massive. But all they did was work out their bodies. They didn't work out their minds. They didn't work out their souls. I want to be a coffee bean, so I get up and I work out all 3. In the mornings, I'll give you my spiritual workout. I get up in the morning and I say the same prayer to God that I learned when I was in recovery in prison. And my program recovery taught me how to pray, y'all. I said the same prayer today that I've been praying since then because it gets me straight for the whole day. It's the only thing I ask of God, y'all. It's a 2-part prayer. I get on my knees and I say, hey, God, put in front of me what you need me to do today for you. And let me recognize it when I see it because I don't want to miss that, God. And then I'm off. That's my spiritual workout, y'all. Because I got to trust. I have this thing about this faith thing that if I take care of what God puts in front of me, his needs, then he's going to take care of my needs. Maybe not my wants, but my needs. And Chris, I can come back and do a presentation some other time for wants and needs. That's about a 6-hour presentation. I got a lot of wants out there, y'all. So that's it. That's my spiritual workout. And after that, it's my mental workout. Your mental workout is everything you put in this big brain of yours up here. What kind of books do you read? What kind of videos do you watch? What kind of websites do you go to? Your social media feeds, who are you following? What are you posting? And TV, how much TV are you sitting there watching? Let me tell you something, y'all. Turn those TVs off, especially if you're watching that news and people screwing at each other. The negativity out there is so strong right now. Don't get caught up into that. Feed yourself the right stuff. Feed yourself positive stuff. You are what you eat. It's not just about food. It's about everything you put in this big brain of yours up here. So feed yourself the right stuff. And speaking of feeding yourself the right stuff, physically working out, man, during this pandemic, we had so much time on our hands, and I heard so many people say they felt like they were in prison. Well, you can't be in prison in your mind, but here's the deal. Even in prison, even when I was inside of a 10 by 12 cell, I could work out every day. And you should too. You should find a way to work on your bodies. Take care of your bodies. You only get one body. If you've got to start with just walking first, do that. Eat the right food. Get enough rest. Take care of your bodies. You only get one body in life. At the end of this pandemic and in life, you're going to see a lot of what I call post and Kellogg stories. Pay attention to this one, y'all. This is big. Post and Kellogg's. So, in the 1920s, there were 2 cereal companies in America, Post and Kellogg's. And really, if you think about it, Post was really the only cereal company back then, y'all. I mean, Post had such a big market share of American cereal. Kellogg's was real small. But in October of 1929, the stock market crashed and the Great Depression began. And when that happened, Post quit doing the things that made them great out of fear and doubt. You know what they did? The stock market crashed. They fired a lot of people. They laid a lot of people off. They quit running radio ads. They quit doing marketing. They quit investing in themselves. They quit reinventing themselves. They quit making new cereals. But Kellogg's, that small company, which I know we can all relate to the small company as CEOs, right? Kellogg's, that little bitty cereal company, the same event in time in history, when the markets collapsed with the Great Depression in October 1929, they watched what Post was doing, and you know what they saw? They saw an opportunity, and they took it. They took all the little bit of money they had, and they invested themselves into marketing and radio and invented new cereals. They invented a cereal during this time called Rice Krispies. Everybody's heard of Rice Krispies. And by 1933, 4 years into the Great Depression, Kellogg's overtook Post as the biggest cereal company in America, and they've never looked back since 1933. They're still the biggest cereal company in America, y'all. Post and Kellogg stories are popping up all over the place after this pandemic. Which one will you be when this is all over, y'all? The third rule about being a coffee bean is knowing what the secret to life is. And the secret to life, it's called servant leadership. And servant leadership, when I was talking to Chris and Greg, and we were putting this presentation together, we talked about your core values, and you're already doing servant leadership. Trust, accountability, commitment, transparency. The only thing I would add to that acronym ATTACK is humility, because humility is the core ingredient, the single most needed ingredient to be a servant leader. And servant leadership is helping other people achieve their goals in life, helping to raise other people up to a different station of life. Because when we're helping other people, that's when we're at our best, y'all. And that's what we're called to do. Every one of us on this call has been helped by someone else along the way. And it's incumbent upon us to find ways to pay that forward and help others out. We have to put back into that stream of life, y'all, every single day. And every one of us has the ability to positively impact lives. And I don't care. I mean, if you're an introverted person, and my wife is introverted, but I tell her all the time, you have that power too. Let me tell you a story about that. So not about my wife, but about having an impact on others. Mr. Rogers. I'm going to go ahead and admit it right now. I used to love Mr. Rogers, and I'm sure a lot of people in this call did too. Mr. Rogers, before he was Mr. Rogers, the children's television show guy, he was a Presbyterian minister, and he told a story from the early 60s. He said he went to a church service one Sunday. He said, and there was a substitute preacher there that day. And by the time this guy's sermon was over, Mr. Rogers thought to himself, that was the worst sermon I've ever heard. He said this guy was awful. He was terrible. It almost put him to sleep. Went against all the rules of giving a good sermon, right? So Mr. Rogers was about to turn to the little old lady next to him and tell her how awful this guy was, but he stopped. He bit his tongue because the woman next to him was in tears. She was in tears, and she turned to Mr. Rogers, and she said, that was the most beautiful sermon I've ever heard. She said it was the absolute right thing I needed to hear at the absolute right time in my life. And she said, I will never forget where I was this day that I heard this sermon. And that's when Mr. Rogers realized that every single one of us, every one of us has the power to positively impact human life. He said even that preacher that he thought was so awful profoundly impacted this little old lady sitting next to him. But he learned another very important lesson that day. He learned that while he was coming in judgment, that little old lady, she was coming in need. In need. Y'all, so many people in America are coming in need. So many people in this call are coming in need. It is incumbent upon us to find ways to meet those needs in others every single day, because people are going to meet our needs too. Find a way to meet needs of other people. Find a way to meet them where they are and help other people out. Servant leadership is so important right now. It's so needed. And it's at the core of Edison already, y'all. Servant leadership. The fourth rule about being a coffee bean is knowing what you do and do not control in life. Y'all, there are 4 things you control in life. It took me going to prison to figure this out, to even understand it, because I had to be stripped of everything and thrown into a dungeon and have nothing in my name and understand that there's only 4 things I control. I control what I think, what I say, what I feel, and most importantly, everybody's going to see what I do, my actions. What I think, what I say, what I feel, and what I do. What essentially I'm saying, y'all, is that your entire world of control stops at your ears. Everything you control is inside your head. Outside of your head, the world's going on without you. Y'all, listen, the CDC, the World Health Organization, the White House, no one has called Damon West yet to say, how do we fix the coronavirus? I know how to fix it, but no one's calling me, right? But that's not what I control. And when I got into the coronavirus pandemic, I got a chance to reapply all this stuff about being a coffee bean. It was like, hey, Damon, you think you're a coffee bean? You go around talking about this? Here's your chance to live it. And I rose to the occasion because I found a way to be useful. And that's what life is all about, is being useful, y'all. Showing up for the moment. And when you control what you think, what you say, what you feel, what you do, you can reinvent yourself. You can find ways to find the opportunity in adversity. The 5th rule about being a coffee bean, and y'all listen, this one was one I learned when I got out of prison, y'all. When I got out of prison, these amazing things started happening. These things that I call God things, and doors started opening. I got a job at a law firm the second day I was out of prison. The books, getting to meet Dabo, going to speak to college and pro teams, and I got married. Y'all. I found someone that would accept me in life and love me with all the mistakes I made. I mean, the best thing in the world. I became a husband and a stepfather, and get this. I got married on May 18th, 2019. Remember I started this? It was May 18th, 2009, the day I was sentenced to life in prison. Yeah, 10 years to the day. I swapped out a bad day for a good day. Or as my wife would say, you went from one life sentence to another. So the 5th rule about being a coffee bean is this. Your past doesn't define you. I don't care what happened in your past. I mean, if my past defined me, you wouldn't be sitting on the phone with on a Zoom call with some ex-con from Texas, having him tell you about, what he's learned in life about being a coffee bean. If my past defined me, then you wouldn't want to listen to what I've. But it's because our past is our lesson. And we learn from our past, but better yet, we can teach others with it, y'all. That's a gift, y'all. The past is your lesson. The present, today, is a gift. Not a gift for you, but a gift for what you can do for other people. How much can we put back in the stream of life? And the future is your motivation. But motivate yourself with the right stuff, because here's what happens. And I saw this all over the coronavirus, y'all. I saw this during the pandemic. when people do not motivate themselves to write things, when people don't motivate themselves with things that cannot be taken away from them. If your motivations, if your value in life, your identity is wrapped up in your job, your home, your car, your what kind of clothes you wear, your bank account, some of these things are really important. But you can always downsize those things and figure out life and readjust and even change that. Like I told you, I've had the best year I've ever had, 2020, and it looked bleak early on. But I didn't put my value in those things. And I never will, because I put my value today in things like my faith, my relationships I built along the way, and my ability to serve other people. Because those three things, there's no pandemic, there's no economic downturn, hell, there's no prison sentence that can take away one of those three things. And that will always make sure I'm a free man. Because if you do not allow yourself to be free, then you become a prisoner in your mind. I'm going to tell you something, y'all. I meet more people out here in the free world that are locked up than I ever did when I was in prison. More people are in prison by their thoughts and by their things than by steel bars and barbed wire and concrete. You can take that to the bank, y'all. So look, I want to wrap this up. I want to wrap this up with what I call my call to action. And y'all, really, it's the same call to action Mr. Jackson gave to me 11 years ago when I was getting, shackled up to another human being to be put on that transport bus to be shipped off to prison. And it's this, y'all. Life is a pot of boiling water. It is. And it's going to continue to be. There's nothing that's going to change it. All the wish in the world won't make it stop. And in that pot of boiling water called life, we've really got three choices. Now we can identify them. We can let life beat us down and become soft and sad and weak like the carrot. Hey, y'all, guess what? I was the carrot last week. It happens. I had a bad day. Or we can allow life to make us hard and mad and mean like the egg. And no one wants to be around the egg. The eggs are angry all the time and mad. They're unapproachable. Guess who was the egg last week? I had a bad day. Actually, my wife told me I was carrot and the egg in the same day, right? But guess what I learned in prison? One last lesson from prison, y'all. Guess what I learned in prison is this. No matter what time of the day, 9 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock at night, it doesn't matter. Guess what I get to do? And guess what you can do too? I can start my day over anytime I want. That's right. You don't have to have a bad day. Having a bad day, that's a choice. You choose to have a bad day because any time of the day you can stop, step back, take a deep breath and say, you know what? I don't have to live like that. And then you jump into that pot of boiling water called life and tell life, you know what? Turn up the heat. I got this because I'm a coffee bean. And y'all, I'm telling you this from a guy that's been through it. The longer the coffee bean sits in that pot of boiling water, the stronger that pot of coffee is going to be. So my call to action to each and every one of y'all today at Edison Partners is this, y'all. You go out there. You go out there in that pot of boiling water called life and you go be a coffee bean. Be a coffee bean, y'all. Chris, Greg, Lacey, thank you so much.
Don't hang up. I don't know if there's any questions out there.
I'm here to answer every one of them.
I know you did a phenomenal job keeping that, frankly, so much in a fairly short period of time, frankly, because I know you have so much more. An hour flew with you the last time we spoke. I just go back to the quick one. You had a business story. You're head of marketing. I don't know if you can tell that in a couple of minutes. The guy that
What's that?
The guy that was your head of marketing, as you say.
Oh man, this is a great story, Chris. Okay, so during the pandemic, I talked to you. There's just so much that fell. So during the pandemic, I was looking at the landscape. Like everyone on this call has done. You look at the landscape, you're like, man, I got to figure this out. Nothing's moving, nothing's happening. When I was locked up, there was a guy in prison, and he didn't make the cut for the book, The Change Agent, because frankly, there just wasn't enough room for it, just like we're doing right now. So this guy's name was Bill Seeley. Bill was in prison with me. He was in there for theft, securities fraud, and money laundering. He was an oil and gas guy. This oil and gas guy that swindled a bunch of his business partners, and a jury gave him 99 years in prison, a life sentence. Yeah, white-collar crime, true story. So Bill and I go through prison together. We get in every prison chapel program. We get in every positive group. Our backs are against each other. We got each other's back in prison. And I mean, Bill is my right-hand man. We came up for parole the same day. I made parole. He didn't. So when I got out, I stayed in touch with Bill. And Bill kept getting denied every year. Every year he would get denied. Last year, 2019, my book, The Change Agent, came out. And the parole voters in Texas. Now, in Texas, there's 21 parole voters. These 21 people have tremendous power. And when you come up for parole, your parole panel will have 3 of these voters on it. You've got to get 2 of the 3 votes. But the most important vote on your voter panel is the lead voter. The lead voter sets the pace for the whole thing. So in May of last year, Bill came up for parole again, and I called up his lead voter, and I was like, hey, look, I got to talk to you about my friend Bill. I said, there's nobody else in prison I can vouch for but this guy right here. And we go back and forth for 10 minutes. The guy's reading my book, and he tells me he loves my book. But we go back and forth about Bill for 10 minutes. He's telling me why he's going to keep Bill in. I'm telling him why you got to let Bill go. And finally, I realized that we're at an impasse. And I asked the voter, I said, sir, have you got to the part of my book about the coffee bean? He said, man, I just read the coffee bean. He said, I love that analogy, Damon. I said, sir, Bill is a coffee bean. And if you let Bill go, if you give his bunk to someone else that is a threat to society, I said, I'll make sure Bill has a job and I'll take care of Bill. Let my friend go, please. And give his bunk to someone that is a threat to society. And you know what that guy told me? He said, Mr. West, I think it's time we look at Bill's parole differently this year. And the next week, he walked out of prison, a free man. Walked out of prison on a lifetime of parole. And now he's on parole for the rest of his life, just like I'm on parole for the rest of my life. But now Bill's out. And I'm like the dog that caught the car. What am I going to do? So I got to figure out a job to give Bill. So I started making, let me show you this. I started making these T-shirts. I started a marketing division of the coffee bean. I don't have a big company, y'all, but I've got to hire my first employee. So I started making T-shirts, these Be a Coffee Bean T-shirts, and mugs, and pins, and all kinds of stuff. And literally, I'm taking a bath on this stuff, y'all, and I'm paying Bill a salary, and I'm taking a bath on him, taking a beating. But you know what? My friend is thriving. My friend is out. My friend is happy. My friend who once did oil deals and made about $500,000 a month when he's producing 11,000 barrels of oil a day. My friend who went from $500,000 a month is selling 4 T-shirts a week, and he couldn't be happier, man. This guy is on top of the world. And he's selling 4 T-shirts a week. This guy's making peanuts, man, compared to what he was making before, right? But he's free. He's happy. He's got a lot of perspective on it. Kind of like the perspective I have. I know what a bad day looks like, y'all. And honestly, I mean, since I got out of prison, I haven't seen a bad day. Neither has Bill. So during the coronavirus pandemic, man, I get to a point in May, and I'm looking at the landscape, and I'm doing these free Zooms. I'm doing everything I can, but no money's coming in. I call Bill up, and Bill has been pestering me since he got out of prison to get into the oil business, but he's got stipulations in his parole. Now, Bill can never be an oil and gas operator again, and he can never raise money for anything again. He's banned for life from ever putting deals together. They don't want him to raise money for the PTA. I mean, just nothing. So I called Bill up, and I'm like, Bill, man, we used to talk when we were in prison, y'all. We're locked up at this unit called the Styles Unit, one of the most notorious prisons in America. We locked up in Styles, and it's in Beaumont. And so Beaumont's got a lot of refineries. Across from the prison, there's a refinery. And Bill used to tell me in the rec yard, man, we walk around that rec yard and talk. He said, Damon, one day we're going to start an oil company. We're going to put our oil in those refineries. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, Bill, when I'm in prison. But in May of 2020, the world looks different. I'm like, maybe we should talk about this. So I called Bill up. I'm like, Bill, listen, man, all that craziness we used to talk in prison about this oil company, all those times you've been bugging me since you've been out, can you really find oil under the ground in Texas? He said, Damon, I've been waiting for your call. So I got a guy, became a business partner with me. We started a company. It took about $300,000 of seed money to start this company up. And I mean, I'm going to talk about it is expensive to start an oil and gas company. But on June 15th, 2020, Coffee Bean Energy was born. And I became an oil and gas operator in the state of Texas. No, seriously, I'm a licensed oil and gas operator now. And I sent my one employee, Bill Seeley, the only employee of Coffee Bean Energy, out to South Texas to go find us some oil wells. And do you know, 2 weeks ago, we just sold 800 barrels of oil onto the open market in Texas. I think oil right now is about $42 a barrel, but we are selling oil in the state of Texas. Bill is my one employee, this guy that I was in prison with that used to tell me our oil would be in those refineries one day. And guess what? Today it is, y'all. Anything in life is possible, y'all. Anything at all. If you can dream it, you can do it.
Damon, that's on behalf of everybody. If you look in the comments, there is a tremendous reception. Awesome job. I just like that it connects to business, helping a friend. That oil story stuck with me. I linked my son's chapel talk up there for those who want to see a 17-year-old tell his version of having school go through coronavirus, having football season canceled. This story connects to everybody. You can see Coffee Bean for Kids. Now I'm selling for you. See that? You got me over his right hand shoulder. I think it's like 10 and under, 8 and under. The bottom line is, when my son said at the beach that, Dad, I can get through this book pretty fast. There's pictures and stuff. I knew we had something. Thanks again, man. Just phenomenal. To everybody, as we wrap up our CEO summit, I really appreciate that we still have nearly 90 people here with us after a couple days. It worked, thank goodness. Way to go, Lacey. Awesome job keeping things moving. Greg, thank you. Kristen and Bobby, for your support on this. Thank you very, very much. I did see a bunch of notes about buying Coffee Bean t-shirts, Damon. So we will be sure you connect to our group here. There's not much more to say when you got a guy with this much energy and this much positivity. Remember the 5 ways to be a coffee bean: fear and faith. They both believe in a future. Which one are you going to believe in? Awesome. And I love the fact that you don't have to win all your fights, but you got to fight all your fights. I know that hit home with a bunch, and it can go on and on. Bottom line is, we're here at Edison. If we can be helpful, please ping us. We will start both the Slack group. Dan's got that ball. And we'll start every month session of sort of these CEO coffees where we'll sort of facilitate and then either jump off or keep the conversation moving.